Hello everyone, my name is Joe. I'm from TurfCast Podcast, the Burnley Football Club YouTube channel and podcast, just giving my thoughts ahead of Burnley's trip to South Wales this weekend to take on Swansea City. And Luke has very kindly sent me some questions, so I'm just going to read them out and then answer them for you all. How has the season been so far? Well, it's been okay. We're third. We are kind of where we expected to be. I always felt like Leeds would probably have too much, especially when we sold all our players late in the January transfer window. When we came down, I thought we were well placed to win the league again. But then we sold, Wilson Odegaard, Dara O'Shea, Muric, a lot of players, Zeki Amdouna, Weghorst, a lot of players left the club. And I remember at the time thinking, we'll probably do well to get top two now. We did then bring some good players in. Jadon Anthony, Hannibal, obviously Edwards in January, and I feel like now we are well placed to kick on and try and get that top two. But yeah, we're knocking on the door of the automatics. We're knocking on the door of the Premier League. It's between us, Leeds, and Sheffield United now. I think Sunderland have dropped a little bit too far now, and it's good to see that we are one of the clubs that are in there. So yeah, in this position now, I'll take it and I'll be happy with that. But come to me at the end of the season, and if we haven't gone up, then ultimately it's a failure. Do you think you can crack the top two? If not, how do you feel your chances are in the playoffs? Firstly, at the minute, yes, I do feel like we can crack the top two. What it is, I think Leeds will win the league, as I've just said. But I feel like Sheffield United are a little bit poor. They just seem to win games without playing well. And I've gone full circle on my opinion of Sheffield United now, if I'm honest, because I was saying at the start of the season, they're not winning games and they're playing poorly. They're playing poorly, yet they're still winning games. That is a sign of a good team. And I think ultimately Sheffield United will be the better of the three and even win the league. And I think after that, it's between Burnley and Leeds. Obviously, since then I've changed my mind. I always felt like Sheffield United would kick on and start playing well, and then you'd be like, yeah, fair enough, they are where they deserve to be. But madly enough, I think they've got just 1 point less than Leeds now over the course of the season. If you add if you add the 2 points that they obviously got taken off them, they will have the exact same amount of points accumulated over the course of the season. Obviously, without the 2 points that were taken off. What I'm trying to say is, I'm just quickly trying to say it as I get the league table up on my phone. Yeah, so they're 2 points behind Sheffield United, right? Obviously, Sheffield United have had the 2 points deduction. So over the course of the season, they have actually accumulated the same number of points as Leeds, and I find that absolutely mind blowing because when you look at the two teams, I think the streets apart. I think Leeds are so much better. But yeah, I think ultimately they can't keep doing that for the rest of the season. But as every single week goes by where they stay above us, I am getting a little bit less confident, if I'm honest with you. Right now, I do think we do it, but this weekend is massive. If we go to South Wales and get beat, for example, and they beat Sheffield Wednesday, then I'll probably change my mind and think it is playoffs. But for now, I think there's some big games coming up, and I feel like we will overtake them soon. And once we've overtaken them, unless they beat us at Turf Moor, I can't see them climbing back in front of us. Put it this way, all we need, it's in our own hands now, because obviously I know we're 2 points behind, but we play each other later in the season. So if Burnley win every single game between now and the end of the season, no matter what Sheffield United do, we will finish second. However, obviously it's also in Sheffield United's hands because they play against us. So a lot of twists and turns, a lot of permutations, but for now, yes, I'm confident that we do get top two. But ask me again after this weekend if you guys beat us, and I will 100% have changed my mind. If not, how do you feel about your chances in the playoffs? I do feel like we are the best of the rest. I feel like we're better than Sheffield United. But if we finish third, I feel like we are the best of the rest. And ultimately, we should be able to put that into practice. You would hope. The playoffs are a lottery, though. Anything can happen. West Brom, they look decent against us the other night. Coventry, all right, they lost. Who was it against the other night? Was it Derby? I can't remember. They lost the other night. And maybe I think they may have peaked too soon. They do worry me when they're in great form, and we've still got to go to Coventry yet, and that is one of the games that I'm pinpointing of we might lose points. But yeah, I mean, in practice, yes, I think we will win the playoffs if we fall into them. But anything can happen, man. Like we get a player sent off early on for a rash challenge, or a stupid refereeing decision, which you see a lot of in this division, in all divisions. So yeah, it's a lottery. I'd rather just go up in second. But if you could guarantee me winning the playoffs, I'd pick that every single day of the week. But you can't guarantee it. I've got a little boy who's 7, and he's not had a chance to watch Burnley at Wembley yet. We haven't been since 2009, other than when we played Spurs in the Premier League and they were playing at Wembley. I haven't been for a very long time to watch Burnley. So I'd like to go if we are guaranteed a win, but it's not that easy. Let's just get promoted. Let's just finish second first if we can, but I don't think we will. And then I can watch the playoffs, relaxing with a cold beer in hand, not having any anxiety about it or anything whatsoever. That'd be the dream. How is your defensive record so good? 11 goals conceded at this stage is crazy. It's a mixture of things. I think ultimately we have fantastic individuals. James Trafford, in my opinion, and I think the majority of football fans' opinions, is the best goalkeeper in the Championship. Okay, there's Cooper at Sheffield United. He does run in close. There's Johansson at Stoke as well. He also runs them both close. But when you look at the goals conceded and the XG prevented, the stats are in Trafford's favour compared to Cooper. I feel like he's superb. He's come on leaps and bounds this season. I'll be the first to admit he was poor last year. I feel like that clouds a lot of people's judgment with Trafford when it comes to him, because he was so poor in the Premier League last season, whereas obviously Cooper was decent in the Championship with Plymouth. Trafford was in the Premier League having dropping stinkers every single week, but it wasn't his fault. There was some errors that were his fault, but I feel like the style of play under Vincent Kompany just properly hung the defence and the goalkeeper out to dry, and ultimately Trafford paid the price for that by being dropped later in the season. But I feel like it's ended up, what's the right word? It's been good for him, I think, is what I'm trying to say. I feel like without that last year, he probably wouldn't be as good this year now, and I think this year he's come on leaps and bounds, he's confident, he's collecting crosses, he's bellowing instructions and stuff, and I think he's a massive part of it. And other than that, you've got CJ Egan-Riley and Maxime Esteve, who are statistically the best defensive centre-back partnership the Championship has ever seen. And I do feel like Maxime Esteve is the best centre-back in the Championship this season. So I feel like that helps. The full-backs are good as well. You've got Connor Roberts, who drops a 7 out of 10 every single week. I feel like he's probably the most underrated full-back, or probably one of the most underrated players in the league. And then on the left-hand side, we do have Lucas Perez, who's been hit and miss. He was hit this weekend because of an injury to Bashir Humphries, who also was excellent. And yeah, that helps, the fact that we've got a lot of good players there. But also, let's not beat around the bush. It's the cautious approach from Scott Parker. He is a cautious manager. He is a defensive-minded manager. And you can see that they're just not committing as many men forward as some teams do, especially down the flanks, for example. It's changed a little bit recently. But for the majority of the season, they'd get to the halfway line, they'd stop, and they'd all just come back in and pass in and just refuse to commit bodies forward. That obviously helps as well. So yeah, the numbers are crazy good, and we are statistically the best defence that this league's ever seen. And unless we concede something like 15, 16 goals in the next 9 games, then we will be the best defence that this league has ever seen. And like I said, I feel like it's a mixture of good individuals and a cautious approach from the manager. Thoughts on the manager? I don't mind him. I like him. I don't necessarily mind the style of play too much. There's been some games where it's like, Jesus Christ, man, take the handbrake off. You need to get forward here. But some games where you look at it and you think, yeah, that was probably justified. Leeds at home, for example, probably one of the most tedious games I've ever been on, if I'm going to be brutally honest. But we nullified the team that have scored the most goals in the league this season. Like, we've played Leeds twice. They haven't scored against us once. That shows, obviously, going back to the previous question, how good our defensive record is and how this approach from Parker can work in the bigger games. Sheffield United haven't scored against us yet this season as well. We've only played them once, though. I like him. Ultimately, the remit is to get out of the division. We need to get out of the division. If we finish third and then fail in the playoffs, ultimately Parker's failed. So again, I'll probably be looking at a change of manager if we don't go up. Having said that, is Parker the right man for us in the Premier League? Again, that's another debate, but I do feel like we will be a little bit more pragmatic with Parker than we were with Kompany in the Premier League, and I feel like we will stay in games better under Parker than we did with Kompany in the Premier League. But having said that, I just think instead of losing games 4-5-0, we're losing them 1-2-0 instead. But let's get there first there. But yeah, I don't mind him. There's been a few people that don't like him, and I feel like a few people have a lot of issues with the style of play, which is fair enough. I don't necessarily begrudge anybody of that. Like I said, it's not my opinion. If I want to be entertained, I'll go to the cinema. I go on the turf or to away games every single week to watch Burnley win. All I'm bothered about when it comes to Burnley Football Club is winning matches and being the best that you can be, getting to the Premier League. We have to get to the Premier League unless, I mean, I do prefer the Championship, but I just think financially the Premier League is where it's at, and if you're not there, you get left behind. And I don't want to become another Stoke, a club that's obviously Swansea as well, a club that's been in the Premier League and hasn't had the chance to go back yet, and now looking over the shoulders potentially of going down to League One. I'm not saying you guys will this season. I think you'll be more than safe, but there's been points in the season where you're looking over your shoulder. Same for Stoke. Obviously, look at Huddersfield; they've gone down, and I don't know how they're doing. To be fair, there's lots of examples where there's clubs that haven't got back, and you just think, well, you need to get back, and I don't want Burnley to become one of them clubs. So for me, I don't mind the style of play. Let's just win some games. If we win every game between now and the end of the season 1-0 and win the Championship, I will not care one bit. I don't care if people don't like the style of play. I don't care if Big Steve from Coventry goes on Twitter and slags us off. We're in the Premier League. That's all that matters. Style of play and formation. Formation tends to be sort of like a 4-2-3-1. Although he did change it slightly recently, but the main one is 4-2-3-1. I could probably name the preferred team, and I'll be pretty much there or thereabouts. It'll be Trafford in goal, Lucas Perez left back, probably CJ at centre back, but obviously he got sent off against West Brom. But the club are appealing it, but they feel like they're in a good position, so we'll see what happens there. Maxime Esteve and Connor Roberts. Then for me, I would have Josh Loren and Josh Cullen as the two holding DMs. We always play the two holding DMs, but we always play two holding DMs. It's quite a fluid formation, as all football formations are these days, and Loren will tend to be box to box. Sometimes you'll see Hannibal in that, but it's without going into too much detail, it can sort of like disjoint the midfield. Josh Brownhill in the further forward. It's not a 10 as such, but it's kind of like playing the furthest forward of the midfield. Marcus Edwards on one wing, so on one wide forward position. Sorry, I get criticised for calling them wingers these days. Jayden Anthony on the other, and hopefully Lyle Foster up front, but he's had some injury issues as well. So yeah, it will be possession based, it will be slow build up, it will be cautious. But recently, the handbrake does feel like it's eased off a little bit because of the likes of Marcus Edwards. He's a fantastic player for this league. I was very surprised we got him. He is in the Lefay ilk. I don't feel like as much was made about Edwards signing for a Championship team than what was made about Lefay, but I do feel like he's of the same mould, and he deserves to be talked about in that manner. And he's been fantastic for us since he came. I'll be honest, against West Brom he was a little quiet, but they doubled up on him. So I would advise that's what you do. Hopefully your manager doesn't see this and then decides to do that. But hopefully when teams double up on him, it then creates spaces obviously for your other players like your Josh Brownhills, like your Jayden Anthony's, to sort of like work in the pockets and things like that. So it's very defensive, or very slow and cautious, should I say. Defensive's not the right word. But the handbrake has been eased off slightly, and I think the time of year helps as well, because we know now we have to go and win games, so we know now we have to push a little bit, and we're obviously playing teams that are like yourselves. Not necessarily. I don't. Like I said already, you guys will be more than fine. Obviously, you'll be watching this, potentially looking over your shoulder, thinking, "Oh, if these win, they win, and then we lose." You're not going down. So you guys kind of like have no pressure. So you do play with a bit more freedom rather than just sitting back and defending. When a team just sits back and defends and sticks two banks of four in front of the goal, we do struggle to break them down. But I think because of the time of year, teams are either playing for something, so they've got to open up and come for us. When we played Luton the other night, all right, it helped that they got sent off. They had a man sent off, but then even then they came at us and they tried to play because they knew they had to get a win. They couldn't. We picked them off and we won very comfortably. Same when Sheffield Wednesday came to the turf as well recently. We picked them off and won very comfortably. Having said that, and I apologise for swearing on the podcast, but we did play Cardiff recently. We did get the win. I'm sure you'll be happy with that. But they did come at us in the second half, and they did step onto us, and we didn't know how to deal with it. We're quite fortunate to get a win in that game, to be honest. So there are instances where teams step onto us and we sit back and like, whoa, what do we do? And we can't really get out. But there are instances where teams come at us, and if you don't press as well, we will pass it round you and get the goal and get the win quite comfortably. Who are the players to watch out for in this game? Marcus Edwards, next question. No, genuinely, Marcus Edwards. There's no surprise that as soon as he starts starting games, we start putting teams to bed. I think he started his first game against Sheffield Wednesday. We won 4-0. He also started against Luton. Won 4-0. I don't think he started against Cardiff, or did he? I can't remember. He did start against West Brom, but as I've already mentioned already, a little bit quiet. I am getting a little bit worried about him at the minute, though, because he didn't play for ages and all of a sudden he's starting every week. So I'm hoping he doesn't pick up an injury. I think maybe he's a little tired, and that's why he was quite quiet against West Brom. But obviously international break coming up soon, so fingers crossed he can come back from that, full of energy and hit the heights that he hit against Luton and Sheffield Wednesday, because he was superb in them 2 games. But yeah, Marcus Edwards, Josh Brownhill, he weirdly isn't liked by the majority of the Burnley fan base. You would suspect he'd be universally loved, but there's a lot of people who accuse him of going missing in big games, or a lot of people who accuse him of, just stat padding against the lesser teams. I completely disagree. I think for me, he's one of the first names on the team sheet. Sometimes Parker does like to tinker with it and take him out or put him a little bit deeper. I think with Brownhill, what it is, when he plays a little bit deeper, that's when he goes missing, because that's not his forte at all. He prefers to be the furthest forward, arriving in the box late. He's our leading goal scorer this season. I think he still is. He was. Zian Fleming's not far behind him, and I think Zian might have overtook him on Tuesday. I don't think he has, actually. But that speaks for itself. It also tells you the story that our strikers haven't been good enough this season. But yeah, Josh Brownhill, Jadon Anthony as well. And I'm hoping Lyle Foster. He scored recently, and we were hoping that he'd kick on. Parker dropped him the week after, bizarrely. That's going back to one of your other questions, actually. That's one of the things that does bother me about Parker. He's a bit of a tinker man and does like to change things a little bit too much. Hopefully the entire front line is the ones to watch. But no, if I had to choose just one player, it would be Marcus Edwards. Do any Swansea players worry you? Well, every team's got some good players, to be fair. I am just going to quickly Google who played in the last match, so I can quickly take... Well, not the last match, actually, the last match that you won, so I can have a look at some of the players that were playing in that game. Interesting to see Vigouroux. I'm hoping he's done well, to be fair. I feel like he has done well, hasn't he? I do feel like he didn't really get a chance at Burnley, if I'm going to be honest with you. So it's good to see him doing well there, because I do feel like he would have been a good keeper in this league. He's obviously not at Trafford level, to be fair, so I get it. And he obviously didn't want to stay on the bench. But if, for example, we stay down and Trafford gets sold, which I think he will. I think he's in the Premier League no matter what next season. I would take Vigouroux back. Obviously, it's not going to happen. I know, is it Ji-Sung? He scored recently against Middlesbrough. I feel like he could be a handful. Cullen as well. He's always of the Brownhill mould for you guys. He's always in the middle, always doing well, always pulling the strings in a Cullen as well type of way. I think he's our Cullen, by the way. Sorry. I feel like he's a very, very good player. So yeah, you've definitely got players that can. I remember when I was talking to you earlier in the season, you were talking to me about Ronald as well. I think he did quite well. I can't remember the game, if I'm going to be brutally honest with you. Every team in this league, that's what I mean. I was talking to somebody recently, and I feel like that every single team in this league has somebody that I look at and think, yes, I would take him. And I think you've got a couple of them players as well, to be fair. So yeah, fingers crossed they don't hurt us, but I do feel like you have players that can. How is Connor Roberts doing at Burnley? Well, I am absolutely astounded to see Connor has signed a new deal at Burnley Football Club. I genuinely thought he was going back to Swansea in the season, in the close season, sorry. His house has never gone up for sale, but I heard some people saying that his wife was selling things, getting ready to sell the house. His contract was running out. Everybody was like, he's going back to Swansea. I'll be honest, I thought it was a bizarre move. I feel like he can still be at the top end of the Championship, bottom end of the Premier League. I feel like he always gets found out in the Premier League, but in the Championship he's a very good player. Like I said earlier, he drops 7 out of 10s every single week. He is the most underrated player in our squad, I think, and I think he's one of the most underrated players in the Championship as well. He is superb. You know what you're getting with Connor. The only thing with Connor is I never really felt like he properly took Burnley to heart, and I always feel like he talks about Swansea a lot, and it doesn't bother me. I get it's his club, but I always felt like you just talk about it privately. In my opinion, don't constantly talk about how much you love the club and things like that. Again, you lot will disagree. I understand that, but that was the only thing. I feel like he gets us as fans though, in a weird way. Even though I don't feel like he properly 100% took Burnley to his heart, I feel like he gets us as fans. And he does seem to be life and soul of the party in the dressing room and stuff, and he's always cracking funny jokes on Instagram and on the Burnley videos and stuff like that. So he's clearly a big part of the dressing room, and I'm delighted that he's still here. He's absolutely fantastic. I love him, and like I said, I did think that going to a team that's been battling relegation, or like I said, I don't think you will now, but you're pulling away from it. I do feel like he is better than where Swansea are at the minute. I hope that's not offensive, but I feel like he is a better fullback than where Swansea are at the minute, and I always thought it was a bit weird that he was looking to go back to Swansea. I do think he goes back to Swansea eventually, probably at the end of his new contract. But yeah, I'm delighted that with Connor, I love him, and I genuinely believe he's a very, very good fullback in this division. Prediction: we have started conceding goals recently because the handbrake has been eased off slightly, as I like to say, but we have started scoring goals as well. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Burnley. Like I said earlier, if we draw this match, for example, it's nothing against Swansea. We could have been playing Real Madrid this weekend, and I'd be saying the same thing. Probably not. That's a bit extreme, but you know what I mean. If we need to stay, it needs to stay in our hands, and we need to soon get above Sheffield United. If we don't get above them soon, then I'm not sure we do. So, and Sheffield United don't play till Sunday. So we need to win this weekend, get above them, and then they're going into a massive game against Sheffield Wednesday. Where the pressure's on and they have to win. And I feel like if they go into the Hillsborough, the cauldron that is the Steel City derby, attacking them. Obviously, you guys know how important derbies are. Obviously, we do as well. I feel like that they're the three best rivalries in the Championship: the Steel City derby, the South Wales derby, and the East Lancs derby. Sheffield United will go into that game with pressure on them from the Sheffield Wednesday fans because Hillsborough is such a tight ground and it's big and it's on them. They'll have pressure on them from themselves because we've gone above them. So yeah, it's massive. We have to win this match. If we lose this match or draw and stay beneath Sheffield United, we'll just do what we did to Leeds this weekend and give them a boost. Midweek and give them a boost because we had the chance to go top. Us and Sheffield United both had the chance to go top. Sheffield United did, to be fair, but if we'd have both won on Tuesday and properly put the pressure on Leeds when they played Millwall on Wednesday, I feel like Leeds probably would have cracked. However, Burnley drew 1-1, Sheffield United drew 1-1. Thankfully, there's no Sheffield United fans watching. And then I just think Leeds went into that game against Millwall with a big boost, and that's why they won pretty comfortably. But yeah, it's massive. It's massive, this one for us. It is really, really big. But I do think we get the job done. I do think we win 2-1. But yeah, thanks for inviting me on the show. Thanks for sending me the questions. It's always great to go on the opposition channels. It's a shame that me and Luke obviously couldn't get our schedules together and have a proper sit-down chat for you all. But yeah, good luck in your relegation. I don't think you're going down. I feel like you are mid-table, sort of like security now. So I'll probably say good luck for next season. Fingers crossed I don't see any of you next season, but that's because we're in the Premier League. It's nothing against you. But thanks for inviting me.